5 years and counting, the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op has been serving West Alabama for all of their hunting, outdoor, gardening, and farming needs, as well as seasonal flowers and vegetables. And this year is no different. The Spring Co-op Plant Sale goes on from March the 25th through May the 11th. Pick any 5 for $20. Mix any varieties. That is the Spring Plant Sale at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op is located in Northport, Alabama, just west of the Highway 82 and 43 intersection at 4301 McFarland Boulevard in Northport. Go by there and see them today for their spring plant sale, March the 25th through May the 11th, only at the Tuscaloosa Farmers Co-op. The bracket is set for March Madness. You are locked in on the Stingray Show. We will dive into the bracketology on this edition of the Stingray Show. Plus, we will look back at week 1 in SEC baseball. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. We've got a lot to cover, so let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out, you're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9, with the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show. And Heath, how was your weekend? And more importantly, how was your St. Patrick's Day?
Oh, St. Patty's Day is always fun. You know, Stephen, I've made this joke for years. I think St. Patrick's Day was made up by women. I think they got so jealous of us men enjoying our basketball and having too much fun, the conference tournaments, the NCAA tournament, and we're all getting together and we're filling out our brackets and we got our bracket pools and that's all we're talking about and watching. I think all the women got mad. They got together. They're like, we just all need to go out one night and have fun ourselves. And, you know, I don't know how we're going to do it. You know, there's something in my closet that I never get to wear and I love it, but it's green. And I never get to wear green anywhere. And like the other girls at the table are like, me too, I got something green. I never get a chance to wear it. And I love that shirt. I love that sweater. And I think all the women got together and created St. Patrick's Day just to try to show us men. And then what did we do? We like, here, well, I got a green shirt. I'll join you, you know. And we just kind of made it. Everyone got their Green Bay Packers shirt out of the closet that they wear once a year and went and celebrate St. Patrick's Day. So, yeah, I think women made up St. Patrick's Day. Can't prove it. Don't know. I'm sure it's on the internet. Of course, I'm joking. But, yeah, man, it was a fun time. You know, I enjoyed all the basketball tournaments, Stephen. Right. I enjoyed all the basketball tournaments. I didn't get to watch all of them, but the ones I did get to watch, it was phenomenal. I just love this time of year, man. Spring training baseball, the NFL draft craziness, you know, everyone's starting to trade in free agency there in the NFL. You know, MLB's almost here. SEC baseball's in full swing. We've got the big dance, everyone on the bubble, not on the bubble. You know, all of it. It's just fun, man. It is big time fun.
So, Heath, let's go ahead and start the show with a little bit of something different because everybody is talking about bracketology and the brackets. Let's start the Stingray Show talking about week 1 of SEC baseball this past weekend. And how about the Mississippi State Bulldogs, beating the defending national champions LSU in Starkville. And how about those pesky Alabama Crimson Tide knocking off Tony Vitello in Tennessee to take the series here in Tuscaloosa?
Well, if you're a Mississippi State fan, you're thumbing your nose at LSU fan like you usually do when it comes to baseball. Mississippi State beat LSU in baseball last year. I mean,
Yep.
We're not impressed with your national title. Your intimidator little rinky-dink billboard out in right field. No one's intimidated by that.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the funny thing, Steven. How many series did Mississippi State win last year? Not many. One.
Right.
And who do they beat? LSU there in the box. And what happens to start the season off this year? Who do they get right off the bat? The historically biggest rivalry in SEC baseball, LSU and State. And what does State do? Should have swept them. One play away from sweeping them. They got a bad call. There wasn't a good video to overturn it. But, yeah, that's what happens. But, yeah, it took 2 or 3. So there it is, man. I'll say this. Traditionally speaking, even if you go back to the Gorilla Ball days back in the 90s, traditionally speaking, when LSU wins a national championship, they usually lose the series to Mississippi State. So it's kind of like a good luck charm for LSU. Like, hey, let's get our tail face kicked in by Mississippi State, and then we'll just go on and win the national title. So that's usually how that works.
So, Heath, let's transition to the Alabama-Tennessee series here in Tuscaloosa. And, man, that has got to do a lot for Alabama's confidence moving forward because they knocked off a very good SEC team. And not only they did it, but they did it with 2 straight wins to take the series. They won Saturday and yesterday.
Yeah, when you drop that Friday night game, your back's already against the wall.
Yeah.
You don't leave yourself with much room. And on the other side of that, and this didn't happen, it's so disappointing when you win the first 2 games of the series and you can't close it out. You just feel incomplete. You won the series, but just the last game. You kind of have the down effect because that's the most recent game. But for Alabama this past week, losing the opener, bouncing back, getting that game Saturday, and then pulling it away and taking it on Sunday, that's big, man. That is big for a confidence booster heading forward. Can we put much stock in the opening weekend? Very little. You can put some, you cannot put much. We got 27 more SEC games plus midweek games before the road to Hoover starts. So with that, or the road to Hoover and the road to Omaha. So with that, we can't get too excited over the opening weekend, but we can smile about it like, hey, we got something to build off of.
That's right. And, hey, Alabama takes on Georgia starting on Friday evening in their first road test of the season in the SEC. And, hey, Mississippi State is over at Texas A&M. And, hey, Texas A&M did not have a good showing on the road at Florida. Man, I tell you what, they went into the weekend undefeated and dropped 2 games to Florida on the road.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's always tough. Yeah. Stephen, there's one team that I want to kind of jump the gun on here a little bit. So impressed with Ole Miss this past weekend. Didn't see that coming. They have been struggling coming into SEC play. Their bullpen has been a little up and down. Their closer, Spencer, showed a lot of moxie out there.
Yeah.
I think he has hit the springboard. I think Spencer, their closer, has kind of taken off. I think he's got the toughness mentally up top. Watch out for that. If you get, 2 outs in the 8th inning, and he's got to get 4 outs, I think he's your guy. I'm okay if he's got to get 5 outs. So with that, yeah, you better be up on Ole Miss before you got 5 outs left in the game because I think Spencer's going to shut it down. I think he's going to be one of the better closers in the SEC this year.
So, Heath, before we go to break and before we finish talking about baseball, I do want to go on ahead and say the Batcats of Kentucky continue to surprise as they swept the Georgia Bulldogs this past weekend in Lexington. Your thoughts on Kentucky briefly before we go to break.
I was not shocked by the Batcats after last season. Coming into this season, I was like, man, I'm not writing off the Batcats. I did that last year. I'm not going to do this 2 years in a row. I was cautious about them, but I definitely wasn't writing them off. Georgia, I've been surprised with all season, but I was like, let's wait till we get to SEC play before we really see what Georgia has. Again, I'm not putting any stock in this weekend, but the Batcats didn't shock me, brother. Didn't shock me at all.
All right, so hold that thought, Heath, because we are up against our first break, and when we come back, we are going to dive into the brackets of NCAA men's basketball, and later on, we will be joined by Chris Lee from Southeastern 14. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back to talk a little March Madness. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Do you guys like to fish? I know I do, and if you have a pond or lake in your backyard that needs stocking of fish, you need to contact biologist Jeff Bagwell with Honey Hole Fisheries. He can help you stock your lake with bluegill, largemouth bass, and hybrid striped bass. You can get in touch with Jeff Bagwell and Honey Hole Fisheries at 205-799-0192. Once again, that is Honey Hole Fisheries, 205-799-0192. Contact Mr. Jeff Bagwell today and let him help you build the lake of your dreams. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Tide 100.9. For more coverage of Alabama football, visit us at Tide100.9.com or download the free Tide 100.9 app.
The Crimson Tide will not be denied.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show, and now let's get to it, my friend. The Auburn Tigers are your 2024 SEC Tournament champions up there in Nashville. They had an amazing run in the tournament up there. Heath, your thoughts on Bruce Pearl getting to cut down the nets up there in Nashville?
It was great. I think it was big time for Auburn. I predicted Auburn in my bracket, my SEC bracket, to win the SEC tournament. I was not shocked that Auburn made this run. I thought that they had a good draw in the bracket. I thought they would beat Tennessee. Mississippi State beat them to that. But with that Mississippi State-Auburn matchup, I thought that was a better matchup for Auburn. I knew it was going to be a tough matchup, but I definitely thought Auburn had the advantage there, and they did. So with that, not shocked at all. You know, when I saw Florida, I was like, is this going to be the Florida team that, you know, came into Coleman Coliseum and shot lights out and just, you know, destroyed the world of it? They were just phenomenal. Florida's got a super high upside. I'll say this. Florida might be a team that could be super dangerous come March. I have not filled out my bracket yet, Stephen, but I got the Gators. I think I'll probably have them going pretty far in March.
So, Heath, sticking with Nashville just for a brief second, I am really surprised by the run that we saw with two bubble teams that cemented their spot in the NCAA. I'm talking about Mississippi State and the other one, Buzz Williams and Texas A&M. Yeah. I did not see either one of those making a deep run up there in Nashville.
You know, A&M shocked me. A&M shocked me the most. Mississippi State, man, wanted to flirt with danger there. If they would have lost that opening game, and they almost did, I think they would have been outside the tournament. There's some people that said they were in no matter what. But guess what? Those people were not on the committee. Right. So, I love, Joey Brackett's, Joe Lenardi when he updates everything. Yep. But again, Joe Lenardi is not on the committee. So I do trust him as the most trusted source when it comes to bubble teams and last four in and first four out and all that fun stuff. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't know. He guesses better than everybody else, but he doesn't know. So with that, super shocked with A&M. Glad A&M made that little run there. I was kind of pulling for LSU. Not an LSU fan, but LSU could have made that team was just garbage last year, and they had to rebuild that whole program in the transfer portal, and they had gotten better each week in the SEC. And that was a team that I kind of kept my own all season. Now, they had some horrific losses. I mean, just terribly bad. But they had some wins in there, too. And so I thought, if LSU can get in here and win 2 or 3 games in the tournament, they could make a run. Obviously, they lost their first game, got put out, and that was that. So, but one thing I'm kind of shocked at, Stephen, and I don't know if this is economy reasons going on with universities. We all know what's going on with the economy nationwide. We know what gas pump prices are and this and that. Well, I'm sure universities are hurting just like businesses are hurting, that we all know about. But I'm wondering, all these schools skipping out on the NIT, financial reasons and what's going on with the economy. That's the only thing I can come up with. There is a ton of schools that are flat out rejecting NIT, because this is the reason why. You have to pay to play in the NIT, and it's not cheap. It is not cheap at all. It's like several $100,000 to play in the NIT. Right. So, I mean, you're usually spending like $300,000 to $500,000 for your team to participate in the NIT. And I just see a lot of teams like, nope, we're not doing it. We're not going to play. Right. So, I don't know what's going on there, but that's my guess.
All right. So you said that you have not filled out your men's bracket yet. However, I do want to ask you, give me a couple of potential upsets that you see in round 1 that starts on Thursday.
First one that comes to mind is UAB and San Diego State. Andy Kennedy, the former Ole Miss basketball coach at UAB, just booming. You always, that 5-12 matchup, 12s, I want to say like at least once every year for like the last 30-something years, to the exception of one tournament, a 12 has beaten a 5. I think that's correct. So you always look at those 12-5 matchups. St. Mary's, the 5, Grand Canyon, the 12. I don't know a single thing about Grand Canyon. I know they got a lot of commercials on television, though. Let's see what's the other 12. Let's see. I'm looking at my bracket right now. Here it is, Wisconsin and James Madison. Now, James Madison, man, they've won 31 games on the season, Stephen. That is a veteran team that knows how to, get through things. If it's a tight game, look for James Madison and their leadership to pull them through over Wisconsin. And the other 5-12 matchup, Gonzaga, the 5, McNeese State, the 12. McNeese State, dude, another 30-win team. So, look, you really have 4 matchups. Now, I don't think we've ever had a tournament where all 4 12s have beaten the 5, but there's a great possibility that majority of the 12s beat the 5 this year. So that's one to always look for.
I'm going James Madison goes on and upsets Wisconsin. Lock it down. That's number 1 for me. And the other one is, because of how bad Kansas is banged up and how they looked in the Big 12 tournament this past weekend, give me Samford out of Birmingham, Alabama, knocking off Bill Self and Kansas.
I'm okay with that. I'm absolutely okay with that.
And, Heath, I will tell you again, another team that is extremely soft that may not make it out of this weekend is the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah, you've been talking about Duke here for a couple of weeks in our text messages and things. I'm okay with that. I always like I like the play-in game. It seems like the team that wins the play-in game, not every year, but they usually win a game or two. Sometimes they end up in the Sweet 16. So, we saw that with Tennessee a couple of years ago. They were the play-in game, and they made it to the Sweet 16 that year. Conzo Martin, their head coach at the time. And people wanted Conzo gone, and they wanted him fired. And, did they make it to the Elite Eight or just the Sweet 16? I can't remember, but I know they made it to at least the Sweet 16. So, we got crazy. Hey, the craziness is why we like it. That's why we call it March Madness. So, we absolutely love it. But
all right. So, Heath, before we go to break, I do want to give you two matchups that I am looking forward to this upcoming week. The first one is going to be on Thursday at 3 p.m. on TNT. It is going to be the surprise team out of the SEC, the 6th seed South Carolina Gamecocks, going up against the final Pac-12 champion, the Oregon Ducks. That game is going to be amazing between South Carolina and Oregon.
That should be a good game. South Carolina, it's more about matchups with South Carolina. Very veteran team, big-time veteran team. Yeah. Look for, South Carolina to do that. Look, we hear it every year. It's not a cliche. It's true. You got to have great guard play when it comes to March. You have to. Those are the teams that always advance. It doesn't matter if you got the best big man. It doesn't matter if you got outside shooting. It doesn't matter if you got lockdown defense, although that helps.
Yes.
You've got to have great guard play on both ends of the floor, defense and offense. South Carolina's got that.
And finally, Heath, before we go to break, the other one that I am most looking forward to is the Friday matchup at 5:50 on TNT. It is Gig'em Aggies, the 9 seed, versus the 8 seed Nebraska Cornhuskers. That one could potentially be another barn burner for Friday evening.
Don't know too much about Nebraska. I look forward to studying them. That's why I haven't made up my bracket yet and been able to look at some of these teams yet. So I don't know hardly anything, but I do know about this about A&M. They're playing really good basketball right now.
Yeah.
So, we've seen it a million times. Good team makes a run, makes the tournament, then they just fall apart. But other times we see teams make the tournament and they continue that run. Which one is A&M going to be? I have no idea, but I look forward to watching it. Here's another thing, Stephen, that is kind of crazy. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Brooklyn, Spokane, Omaha, Charlotte, Memphis, Salt Lake City. Those are the hosts this year. There is not a game in the state of Florida or in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
That blows my mind. The tournament always has games, whether it be in Miami, Orlando, Tampa, somewhere. In Texas, you've always got Houston, you got Fort Worth, you got Dallas, but we don't have a single game in the state of Texas or the state of Florida. That just shocked me when I saw the brackets. Because I was like, why did Houston get messed over? They got to go to Memphis. And then I noticed Memphis was the closest thing to Houston. I was like, oh, wow.
So, Heath, on that note, we are going to take another break. And when we come back, we are going to be joined by Southeastern 14's own Chris Lee to get his thoughts on college basketball and SEC baseball. That is on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Be back in a flash with none other than Chris Lee from Southeastern 14. Strange Brew Coffee House continues to roll out brand new drinks, including the Yosemite, which is white chocolate and roasted marshmallow. Doesn't that sound amazing? You can find Strange Brew at 1101 University Boulevard, right there on the Strip at the University of Alabama campus. And hey, did you know that you can get Strange Brew delivered to your door? Check out StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com for all the Strange Brews bags of coffee, K-Cups, mugs, shirts, and a whole lot more right there at StrangeBrewCoffeehouse.com. Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. Your life can change on a dime, and if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. 5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville.
Are you ready? A national championship team covering a national championship team. The best sports talk in the state. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Are you looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name? Then we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by the people you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 Tuscaloosa locations today. Bryant Bank, an equal housing lender, and as always, a member of the FDIC. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you. And now we are going to continue our talks about March Madness with none other than Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. And Chris, how in the world are you doing on this Monday?
I'm good. We're already putting the madness into this behind the scenes, but this is the time we live for.
Chris, I've been saying it for years. The selection committee already has things in place, over 90% of the bracket in place before conference tournaments. We saw that again with Auburn. You know, I remember back in 1996, I was a student at Mississippi State. Mississippi State was ranked in the top 25. They were like 23, 24. Kentucky had been number 1 wire to wire all season long, one of the most dominant basketball teams in the history of college basketball. In the SEC tournament, Mississippi State wiped the floor with Kentucky, and they still stayed at a 5 seed. And so many state fans were upset about that. And that's when I learned back in 1996 that the committee had that, because right after the game was the selection show. And so with that, Auburn is upset they were number 4. Auburn, I hate to tell you this, you had a phenomenal tournament. You clearly were the champion. But the selection committee had you at number 4 probably like last Saturday.
I have a little bit of a different theory on that. I think that the tournament results matter through about Friday. I think once you get to Saturday and Sunday, they are irrelevant other than who wins the tournament. And that drives me crazy because so you're getting like some of these teams, especially in an unbalanced conference schedule, you can draw a year where your non-conference schedule, either you didn't play anybody or you tried to play somebody. I'm looking at Memphis here, and those somebodies didn't materialize the way you thought they were. Then you get into conference, and if you've got like a Big 12 balanced schedule that takes care of itself. But if you get the SEC or some of these other leagues where you play in all the teams once and then 5 of the other 13 teams once, you just never know what you're going to draw year to year. And so when you get deeper into the weekend, some of these teams are playing some of their better opponents. It's a better body of representative work when you get into the quarters and the semis and the finals in these big leagues. Why we don't count that makes no sense to me. I think that if the committee is that rushed, it's got that many things going on, push everything back, have everything done by, I don't know, Saturday mid-afternoon or something like that. So then you've got some time to evaluate what happened. Right. But I'm with you. I cannot stand the way they do it, and it's not fair.
So, Chris, obviously everyone is looking forward to the bracket time and Thursday with the start of the big tournament. But I want to briefly back up and talk about the SEC tournament in Nashville that you covered. Your thoughts on what went down in Nashville this past week.
Well, I think it was interesting because I think I probably made a mistake in not valuing some previous matchups and how teams matched up. I dismissed Mississippi State's win over Tennessee as just kind of a one-off night. We saw what happened. State dominated Tennessee almost from the jump to the point where it looked like Tennessee almost gave up. They were so frustrated. That's number one. Kentucky A&M, part two of that. We had seen that one play out in the regular season, just thought that was a fluke. A&M on the right day, Kentucky on the wrong day. Well, that happened again. You had Auburn and South Carolina. That was a mismatch the first time around. It was a mismatch the second time around. And then we get to Sunday. I think Auburn had a very impressive week. Did Auburn get a little bit of gift by not having to play Tennessee? Sure. But that's how tournaments are done. Did Auburn get a gift getting a Florida team that was already a little bit more tired, having played one more game, and then getting an injury to its starting big man 2 minutes in? Yes, it did. But those are the breaks. I don't think it was going to stop Auburn anyway, the way that team was playing. And that's a team, Heath, I think Auburn getting a 4. I did not understand it. Auburn should have been 3. And, oh, by the way, Auburn got put in the East, which is hands down the most competitive region. And, oh, by the way, the defending national champ and the overall number 1 tournament seed is sitting there at your 1.
So, Chris, looking at the bracket now, which SEC team do you have making the deepest run? And what SEC matchup are you most keeping your eye on in the Thursday and Friday matchups?
I think matchups off the jump. I think Nebraska A&M is a really, really good matchup. Nebraska, won some big games in its conference, beat Purdue. The problem with Nebraska is it did most of its damage in Lincoln. You get that team outside of Lincoln, the results weren't as good. But Nebraska's got a really good coach at Fred Hoiberg. A&M, man, 2 weeks ago I had written A&M off. And then we go to the tournament, and A&M puts its best foot forward. A&M beats Kentucky. A&M not only has got its best 2 guards in Taylor and Radford playing really well, it found a third guy in Obaseki, which it really, really needed. So I'm watching that one because if A&M wins that one, it's going to get Houston in round 2. And A&M took Houston to the wire in its building without Tyrese Radford. So I say keep an eye on that based on what I just went through about matchups. That's number 1. I think in terms of Michigan State, Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Fantastic first game matchup. I need to dig into that one a little bit more on the Michigan State side before I give you a really good opinion there. So those are the 2 that stand. I think Alabama-Charleston is another one. Alabama just could not get interested in playing defense with any consistency. Charleston with Pat Kelsey, that's a team that's going to be bringing the energy, going to be probably a popular 13-4 upset pick. I think those are good ones. In terms of who got the best draw, I think Auburn right now, I feel better about Auburn than anybody, but it got an awful draw being in that East region. Yeah. So that to me, Auburn, I'm not going to say Auburn's a non-starter because everybody in that bracket's dealing with it, but I just do not want any part of Connecticut, which, by the way, they would meet Connecticut in the round of 16, which is just criminal. But that's what the committee has done here. Kentucky is such a polarizing team because depending on when you watch them, you either think they're going to get upset by the 14 maybe, although I don't think Oakland does anything particularly well. And then you've got a Florida-Kentucky potential matchup in the Sweet 16. Florida played exceptionally well at times, but the Hen-Logden injury, I don't know what that does to that team. It does have a couple guys in the deep freeze that we saw Todd Golden pull out at various times. So I think based on matchups, A&M and Kentucky are 2 really interesting teams. I've got some issues with both of them going a long way, but they've both shown that if they put it together for a week or 2, they can win several games.
Okay, and Chris, finally on the college basketball topic, going ahead and give us an upset that you see in the first round. I will start first. I'm going with a little bit of a shocker here. I'm going Samford. The Bulldogs send Bill Self and Kansas home in the first game this season. Your thoughts?
You just took the one that I had circled because Samford can just shoot you out of the gym. It will press. Now, sometimes that works against Samford. And teams with athletes, I would think, could be problematic. But Kansas is super banged up. Hunter Dickinson hurt his shoulder. A week or two ago? I think McCullers hurt. They're not deep anyway. I think that one seems right for the picking based on Kansas's health. Kansas is already – I mean, like, even when Kansas was healthy, people were saying, I don't know that this team has got what it takes to go far in March. And now Kansas is decidedly not healthy. And you get a potentially nightmare matchup if Sanford's jumpers are on.
Chris, the one thing that I've noticed over the years, whoever is the SEC champion, they take an early exit. They don't make the Sweet 16 most of the time. We've even seen it with teams like Kentucky. We've seen it with teams like Georgia, who was a bid stealer and had a terrible season but won the SEC tournament. They usually exit first round, but they usually don't even get they definitely don't get out of the second round. Are we going to see that again this year with Auburn?
I would push back on that a little bit because Auburn did this, 2019 and made the Final Four.
Yeah.
We saw, and it's been a minute, but Florida did it under Billy Donovan. They had that big run in the SEC tournament, first championship year. I remember they were blooming late and did it. So I don't know. I would say maybe that's more matchup than running the table in the tournament. I don't know, but I would have loved Auburn if it hadn't gotten stuck in the East. That was such a bad misseeding. I don't even have words for it.
I'm with you on that. I think we're all with you on that.
Yeah.
So, guys, we are going to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to continue our talks with March Madness. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back with Chris Lee.
On the next Inside the Locker Room with Coach Wimp Sanderson and Barry Sanderson.
Tune in Tuesday, 7:30. We'll have Kevin Skarbanski, and we'll talk to Kevin about all four teams from the state of Alabama played in the NCAA tournament. Plus, we'll take your phone calls throughout the show. We'll look at Alabama's matchup with Charleston.
Inside the Locker Room, weekdays 7 to 9 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
If you're looking for a traditional banking experience with a banker who calls you by name, we invite you to get to know our friends at Bryant Bank. Bryant Bank customers enjoy online banking accessible around the clock to give you the freedom and flexibility to bank your way, all backed by people who you know and trust. Get to know your Bryant banker at one of the 4 locations right here in Tuscaloosa. Bryant Bank, equal housing lender, and of course, a member of the FDIC. Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their #1 priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Roll Tide, the best sports talk, period. Your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Chris Lee from Southeastern 14. And guys, it is March Madness. However, there was some madness in another sport this past weekend as Alabama knocked off Tennessee in baseball to start the SEC season, and Mississippi State knocked off the defending national champions in the series over in Starkville. Chris, I know that you were focused mostly on basketball, but give us your thoughts on the opening weekend of SEC baseball, please.
Well, not a good weekend to be on the road, and I'm going to do this from memory. Auburn got swept at Vanderbilt.
Yes.
South Carolina lost 2 of 3 at Ole Miss. South Carolina would have been considered the better team coming in. Missouri got swept at Arkansas. Everybody saw that coming. LSU got taken 2 of 3 at Mississippi State. Most people didn't see that coming. A&M was unbeaten, lost 2 of 3 at Florida. Georgia got just boat raced by Kentucky in what I thought was an interesting stylistic matchup. I didn't think it would be that lopsided, 3-0, and some of those games weren't close. Mm-hmm. And who am I leaving out? I think Alabama, Tennessee. I don't know if that's all of them, but point is, if you went on the road this weekend, it probably did not end well for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. We always have that crazy weekend in SEC play where it just seems like all the underdogs sweep the favorites. And we didn't see that this past weekend, but we had a lot of like, oh, wow, didn't see that one coming all across the conference. And it was just that crazy weekend. We never see it the first weekend. We saw it this past weekend. I am not holding any weight from any matchup in any of these games from this past weekend. Just not, it's too early. I'm just not holding any weight to any of this.
But guys, I will say this though, for this Alabama baseball team, beating Tennessee the way that they did yesterday was a major confidence boost moving forward, because Tennessee had them on the ropes with 2 outs, the bases loaded. You miss one bad pitch, that is a walk-off, and Alabama struck them out when it needed it most. That is a major confidence boost for this young Alabama baseball team.
Well, not just that, but you get beat pretty handily on Friday night. So it's not just that one game, it's the series hinging on that. Look, I think to something Heath said, we just had this parity discussion in basketball. We had it in football. I think we got it in baseball too. I don't see a really clear pecking order. I mean, I think you could argue 6 or 7 teams, or probably 5 or 6 is more like it. And probably 5, the more I think about it, is maybe who's the best team in the league. But I think even on the bottom end, the Mississippis kind of got buried early, but have done some good things. Both did good things this weekend. Both have done some bits and pieces of things coming into this weekend. I think Missouri is going to be probably uncompetitive, but I think these other 13 teams, although I do have some questions about Georgia after this weekend, but I think you've got a lot of teams in this league that are showing signs of being competitive.
Yeah.
So, Chris, now after South Carolina's unfortunate weekend, this past weekend, the chirping is continuing about their head coach, and can he get them back to where they want to be? Your thoughts on the situation of the coaching up there at South Carolina?
I think that's premature. This is a school that, again, last year, I think had a chance to make a run to Omaha if injuries do not just decimate that team.
Yeah.
I mean, that lineup got hit like few that I've ever seen. So that's number one. Number two, the games they're losing for the most part are pretty close.
Mm-hmm.
That's baseball. You know, I'm playing you. I throw a pitch. You got 3 guys on with 2 outs. You know, ball's about to be called on the warning track. A gust of wind comes and blows it over the fence. That's a 4-run difference right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, ground ball going through the infield, 2 outs, guys on second and third. It hits a pebble. It trickles into center field. That's 2 runs. It doesn't hit a pebble. Shortstop scoops it up, makes a play at first. That's 2 runs. Baseball is full of that kind of stuff. And especially in short periods of time, I just don't think you can get overreactive to losing a bunch of close games to good teams, especially against the backdrop of what happened last year. It may be what it is, but that's not the way I see it.
You know, I want to jump in for the South Carolina fans, the Ole Miss fans, the Mississippi State fans, everyone who thinks that they might be making a coaching change at the end of the season. Stop saying Tony Vitello. All right, stop. You're not getting him. And I'm going to tell you why right now that you're not going to get him. One, Tennessee has more money than all of you. And two, the expectations at your school are mountaintop, Mount Fuji here, Mount Everest. All right. Tennessee baseball doesn't have those expectations.
Right.
And they love him there. And so anyway, they can pay him more and the expectations are lower. You're not getting Tony Vitello. So get that out of your mind. You're not going to get him. Now, if you start talking about Coach Godwin over at East Carolina, okay, yeah, you can start talking about that. But stop with the Tony Vitello talk. You're not going to get him South Carolina. You're not going to get him Ole Miss. Mississippi State, you're not going to get him. I'll say this. After the weekends that State and Ole Miss had, they've got a little hope. Again, I'm not putting an ounce of anything that tells me that both of those teams are going to be good the rest of the season. Hey, it was a one weekend. You got the win. Great. See if you can build on it, but I'm not buying it just yet. Everyone pump the brakes. It's one weekend. We got 27 more of these games to go.
Yeah, bringing that full circle, this time last year, Tennessee went to Missouri and got swept. So there was that. That tells you how much things can change from start to finish. Number two, I just think that culturally he's a fit for that program. Yeah, I can't think of a place where he's a better fit. Like that wouldn't work. Not that there's going to be a coaching change, but I'll just throw that wouldn't work at Vanderbilt. It might work at Florida, but I don't think Sully's going anywhere anytime soon. LSU was in the water a couple years ago. That never happened. I mean, might work at Missouri because just nobody cares, but they just made a coaching change. South Carolina has been a lot more buttoned down with Ray Tanner and Mark Kingston. I just don't see where that really works as well as it works in Knoxville.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, Chris, let's go on ahead and turn the page to week number 2 in SEC play. And hands down, this is the marquee series of the weekend. Number 8, Florida at number 2, LSU, down at the box, down there at Alex Box. Your thoughts on Florida at LSU series that starts Friday evening at 7 o'clock on the SEC network?
Well, both of them had some pitching issues this last weekend. But, I mean, that's just life in the league anymore, I think, to be honest with you. I would have to go and rewind those games a little bit more than I've been able to do so far in terms of exactly what happened. Where I know that LSU's blew up because of Christian Little late. So there's that. But, yeah, I mean, I think that's one. I'm trying to pull up the schedule, and the SEC's website is so messed up.
It is.
That it's driving me bananas here. So you said that one's at LSU?
It's at LSU, Alex Box.
Yeah, I mean, I think based on what we've seen so far with home teams last week, and you got to lean LSU.
Okay.
LSU got a home call this past weekend. If they they got a home call on the road in Starkville. LSU should have gotten swept this weekend. They got a call that went in their favor. Just things didn't happen, but I don't think anyone saw that one coming. LSU's been cruising this so far. One play away from getting completely swept on the weekend.
Yeah, and that was the game they won. That was a 9-8 game, if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, they got a call there in the 8th inning. So I mean, it's just one of those things. If they didn't get the call, they get swept. It's just
isn't that amazing?
So, Chris, look, man, as always, we definitely want to thank you for joining us here on the Stingray Show. Have a wonderful week covering baseball and basketball, and we will catch up with you this time next week, my friend.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You good, Chris?
You too.
So, Heath, that is going to wrap up another edition of the Stingray Show. We hope that you guys have thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, tomorrow evening, Alabama has a midweek game on Tuesday evening. So we will be back with you guys later on in the week. So enjoy your rest of your Monday evening. Have a wonderful Tuesday out there, and we will see you guys later on down the line. And hey, when we come back, you never know who's going to pop up on the Stingray Show. We will see you guys on down the line. It's March Madness, man. Bring on the madness.
Get your dancing shoes, Steven.